Tina Marie Hilton, and I would like to welcome you to video number 2 in the Building a Website with Headway and Girly Geek. I am the Girly Geek, and we are talking about the Headway theme for WordPress. In the first video, we did prep work. We decided that, or I explained that, when I get ready to design a website, and build with Headway, the first thing that I do is create what is called a wireframe or a mock-up of the website. Now I do this because I get a little sidetracked if I jump right into the design editor, and I tend to not have quite as cohesive a design. I'd rather have an idea of what my design is going to be like. Now, I create my wireframes in PowerPoint, but you can do it in Photoshop. You could do it in just about any photo editing software, Paint.net, and even Word. You could do it in anything where you can kind of mock up how your website's going to be pulled together. Now I have saved mine from PowerPoint into a PDF because it makes it easier to pull up to look at when I'm building. And as you can see here, this is the design that I showed you that I pulled together in the last video. So I've got this, so I have an idea of exactly what I'm going to do here on this website. I know what I have. And then the second thing that I talked about in the first video was the fact that once I know what sections that I'm going to have, what the design is going to be like, then I can make a decision on what plugins I'm going to install. And what I've done is I've gone into, this is actually a development site that I use for building client websites. What I've done is I've gone into this development site and I've made sure that the plugins that I'm going to need are already installed. In this case, a lot of them are pre-installed because I use this for building sites exclusively. But if there weren't, this would be, in that preparation stage, I would have installed the ones that I need. I knew in this case that I was going to need the article builder block, the Headway features block. Those are premium blocks for Headway. I would recommend these blocks to you. They have amazing functionality, they have amazing support, and they really do make building a really professional looking website so much easier. It's not that you couldn't do it without them, but you probably have to do some CSS coding or put in some plugins for different functionality, and it's nice to have these plugins that are actually built specifically for Headway because they're going to play nice and not cause any conflicts. So I already had those in there. You'll see some of the extra ones that I'm not necessarily going to need on this site, like the Slider Plus, but one that I try to always put in there is the Swiss Army block. And truthfully, the part of the Swiss Army block plugin that I use the most is called a spacer block, and it allows me to add in some extra space, particularly by pixel size, very, very easily. And lots of times you kind of need that extra space or a white spot or whatever, and you don't want things to butt right up against each other. And I have found that the Swiss Army block is fantastic for that. There are other features within there, table of contents, titles. There's outer space where you can put some ads in on the outer sides of your website, but truthfully, the part of this block I use the most is that spacer block, especially in the design process. So I've gotten all of this taken care of because today in this video, what we're going to do is we're actually going to jump into the visual editor. And so we're going to go to Headway and we're going to pop into the visual editor grid. Now, of course, this is a development site, so I have already have that development splash on there that I use. If this was a brand new install, you would be met with the Grid Wizard. Well, in order for me to use the Grid Wizard, I have to go up to Tools and pull it up. But if this was a new install for you, this would come right up for you. Now, if the design that you have laid out kind of fits one of these presets, for example, this is a real popular one where you've got the header, the navigation, and then the content to one side, a sidebar to the other, and then your footer. If that fits, and you might only have to add a block or two to that in order to make it fit your design, then by all means start with a preset. It definitely saves you time. But for me in this case, I'm going to start with the empty grid. And the empty grid is just that, totally empty. you're just going to see this one spot, and what this is a wrapper. We're going to talk about wrappers really briefly. I have a video that's totally on adding wrappers to Headway and what wrapper use is, what you can use it for. But in this case, I know that the design I've done is going to call for 3 wrappers. And I tend to use a fluid wrapper because the fluid wrapper goes all the way out to the edge. If you use a fixed wrapper, then you're going to have a border around your website. I like to take the wrapper right out to the edge on a lot of my designs, and this one is no exception. And it's very easy to add a wrapper. I'm going to add that fluid wrapper, but I want a fixed width grid. Now, the reason I do that is because it keeps all of my content within this same area, and it'll line it up. Now, if you went with a fluid width grid, when somebody's on a larger monitor, it can sometimes distort the content that you have in there. It'll stretch it out, and perhaps it will, and in a lot of cases it won't retain the design look that you desire. So in order to keep that the way that I want it, I'm going to have that fixed width grid. It's not that I haven't ever used fluid, but fluid fixed tends to be what I use the most. So I'm going to want one at the top for my header area, and we already know that I'm going to do something pretty fancy because I want the content that's going to be down in here to scroll up and actually go underneath this header wrapper up here. So that's my header area, and down at the bottom I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the fluid with the fixed, and that will be where my footer area is. So the thing that you want to do is you just start drawing. And I know that my header is going to go right in the center, and it's just going to be my logo. And so I'm going to draw that block. I know it's going to be square like that, and I'm going to choose header. And then I also know, I'm going to move this over just a little bit. I also know that on each side I want to have a navigation, one on each side. So I'm going to hit navigation and navigation. And you notice that I'm not really doing anything but drawing my blocks and marking what they are. And this way I can get my design all set up before I do anything else. And then in this next section, I know that this I want to be a features block. So we're going to go down here and find my features block and pop that in there. And then under that, I know that I'm going to want an articles block, and I'm going to go in there and do that. The article builder block. And then down here, we know that we're going to want a widget, and this is a widgetized footer, and the way that you do that is you make that a widget area, and under the layout you want it to be horizontal. That's going to make those line up across, and you're going to get that 3-column footer or 4-column footer that you're looking for by using that widget layout. And then of course we always want our footer. And that's just how easy it is to add these blocks. I mean, you simply have to draw them and then choose what you want as far as what type of block you want that to be. And once you get them all pulled together, then I go back and I decide, okay, what can I do right here from directly in the grid? I know that I can open my block options, and in my block options I can choose my image. And of course you can upload it from your computer, you can get it from your media library. So I'm going to do anything that I can do there. I also want to make sure that I look at the setup button. Under this setup button, very, very important here, is to find this responsive grid. We want our websites to be mobile friendly, and Google loves the responsive websites. So you definitely want to enable your responsive grid. This is going to make everything resize on smaller monitor sizes. So for example, a tablet, an iPad, an iPhone. So what I do is I go back through all of the blocks that I've drawn in and decided what type it was going to be, and I've popped in and I have done everything that I possibly could do from the grid within each block. For example, I've gone back to the menu area and chosen which one of these navigation bars is going to be used for what menu. I of course have uploaded my logo. I added a Swiss Army spacer, and that's because of course I have worked in this design, and you will find yourself, no matter how much you prepare yourself here in the grid, there will be things that you'll have to come back into the grid to fix. But what I try to do is do as much as I possibly can. And because I have that wireframe, I can do a lot right here in the grid before I ever start in the design area, which is going to be in the next video. We're going to hit the design. But I added a Swiss Army spacer only because I've designed a site like this before that has slid up underneath that top header portion, and I know that I'm going to need some space there, or otherwise that's going to cover the top part of my content and people aren't going to be able to see it. So I knew that I had to put some space there, and that was trial and error. That would be something that if you were building something like this for the first time, you'd probably have to go into the design area to see what was going on and then say, ooh, I'm going to have to pop something in there to add some space. So this is just something that I know because of my experience in building sites. Then down here in my features block, I actually have gone in here, and here's the responsive control. You can choose where that's going to break down and resize. And I choose the popular tablet portrait area so that it will resize well there. But I've also put my features content in here, and that again is being prepared, thinking about what I want for content on this landing page, and then I can just cut and paste things in as far as putting in my block title and a description, if I had wanted a footer or after the block. And then here you see each of my features, and I have my title, I've popped my description in here, I've chosen an image to go next to it. And I've done as much as I possibly could in each one of these blocks. I've added a text block as kind of an intro to the article builder area, because in this particular design I'm going to pull in page content in the article builder. Let's go there and see that. Instead of it pulling in a category, I actually have a post ID, which I've taken the page post ID in each one of the pages, because what's going to happen here on this website is I offer clients the ability to choose something that I've already pre-designed and have a Headway template for. So if they see a layout that they like, but they would just like to have customized with their colors, their logo, whatever, they can choose it. So this is where it's going to pull in some of those template designs so that they can see on the front page, look, you can get a little bit of a deal if you choose something that's already pre-designed and that I have in a template format. So that's what's happening here, and it's actually pulling in pages instead of posts. And then as I went down and was actually looking at my design and thinking about content between the time that I designed in our last video and the time that I've pulled this together in this video, I decided that having that 3-column area in my footer was overkill. And so instead I've added a third navigation area. But what this navigation area is it gives them access to everything, that both sides. Because up here you'll see that I have it split into two. We've got two spots there and 2 links here. And again, because of my experience in designing something similar with the 2 different areas, I know that when this resizes onto an iPhone, that one of these navigations is going to go to the top of the logo and one's going to go to the bottom. Well, that one that goes to the bottom tends to cover up content and make people not be able to read my content on my website. So what do you do about that? Well, what I've chosen to do is to go into the responsive control for this one on the right hand side, and you see this where it says responsive grid block hiding. I've marked that on iPhones and smartphones I want that navigation block to hide. I don't want it to show up. Well, that's great. So now I only have a navigation point above the logo, but it's not giving them access to all of my items. It's only giving them the about and the website creation. So how are they going to get to the support and the contact? Well, the way that I've worked past that is I've added this full navigation down here at the bottom. And when we go into the design in the next video, you'll see that I don't make it it doesn't pop out at people. It kind of blends into the background on the regular screen size. But when you resize to the iPhone size, that is going to be because that people are going to be able to find it very easily at the bottom of the website, and they'll be able to go to anywhere on my website. So it kind of gets past that design challenge that I had of either not giving access to the complete website on an iPhone or having my content covered up, which really makes no sense whatsoever. And then below that, I have gone into my footer and I have customized my copyright. So this is what we've done. We've got our design. Our design is all created. We've gone into the blocks. We've set up all of the options that we possibly can without having seen the design. And in the next video, we will actually get into playing around with that design aspect. But you now have your design created in the Headway Visual Editor.